welcome to another episode of NetSupport Insights. I'm Maggie, and today I have with me Rachelle Dené Poth, who's going to be chatting with us a little bit about the world of ed tech and being able to navigate all the crazy things that are going on these days. So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you having you here.
It's all good.
I know. So you are doing a whole lot of ISTE this year. What have you been up to so far?
Yeah, it seems to be, I wouldn't know ISTE in any different way other than just being in all the spaces and moving around a lot. But I came in on Sunday and I had a workshop that I did with a really good friend of mine, Melody McAllister, which was about podcasting and live streaming.
Nice.
So getting us as educators to kind of podcast, because there's so many benefits in that for reflecting, and how I started my own podcast. It was just basically me talking to myself and answering my own questions. But people were like, oh, thanks for sharing those ideas. But I realized it helped me to think about how things were going in my classroom, what I could improve upon, also to laugh at myself a little bit. So we did the session on Sunday, and then I had the ISTE author. I had a little 30-minute session across from ISTE Central about my book with ISTE, which is about teaching students about essential skills, social emotional learning. Yesterday I had an artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality workshop, which is my favorite, because those topics I love to talk about. That's something I've been doing that session for about 5 years now, I think. And it's fascinating to see how much interest has grown and continues to grow, especially with the AI, as we've known in the last 6 months. It's all everybody is talking about. So I had that yesterday. Also did a STEM session at the end of the day, which it might be my favorite, because there's a young woman from India, Namya Joshi, and she has done a lot of work in STEM. She was supposed to be here in person, but she couldn't. So we got there and I set up a Zoom room and brought her into the room, and we co-presented. And from a student's perspective and experience, talking about Minecraft, the benefits, and the importance of STEM, it was just awesome. So then today I had a session this morning, and now hanging out with you a little bit, chatting it up.
There's so much going on, so I know we appreciate your time, especially because it's so packed full. So of course the big buzzword in education right now is everything related to AI.
Yep.
So you've got some schools that are taking it on, they're jumping on other ones who are very hesitant about it. So what's your best advice for a school that maybe is oh, it looks interesting, but we're not sure how to approach it? What should they be doing first, or how can they dabble, if they're a little afraid?
That is a great question, and one which will be discussed, I'm sure, tomorrow with the closing keynote with Kevin Roos, so I'll have a chance to sit down and interview, because all the questions well, how do I get started with it? Why does it matter? Do I even have the expertise? One, I dove into it without knowing very much at all about AI, but I realized, even the youngest learners, there are things that you can use in your classroom as an educator to teach them about that. In schools, may not necessarily know about the resources, because we're in a world full of ed tech things here, especially in this space, and you don't know what to choose from. But the nice thing is there are organizations out there, ISTE is one of them, that has curriculum guides, and it gives you constant sources of information about privacy and ethics and bias and important topics in AI, safety and security also. But then things that kids can do, they had four curriculum guides, elementary, high school, computer science, and electives, that if a teacher is thinking, and I don't want to say but I used to say I'm just a Spanish teacher, I can't do that. But sometimes we as educators will say I can't fit that in. Mm-hmm. But these guides, all you have to do is pick it up, go through it. So schools can access things like that. Organizations, from Pittsburgh, we have AI for K-12 with Carnegie Mellon, does a lot of great work with AI.
Great.
So schools have access. AI4all.org is another one. They can see what's being placed out there, because people know that there's not a ton of information, especially when it comes to generative AI now, and the ChatGPT, of course, the past 6 months up to this point, 6+ months, is the concern. But I think the best advice is people were asking me, should we ban it? Should we not use it? And I said, well, no, we're in the best position as educators in our schools to provide opportunities for students to learn about it. So why not embrace it with them? And it's okay to not be an expert. I am certainly not an expert. I spend a lot of time behind the computer learning, but it's impossible to keep up. So opening it up, letting kids get involved in it, having conversations about it, and seeing where it goes.
That's brilliant. I think what you said is you're not an expert, but really no one is. Unless you developed it, everyone's learning along with it. So why not dive in now and learn with your students and learn together, rather than it being I have to be an expert, I can't teach it mentality. You're right. We're not just teachers. We're learners. We are, we're adventurers. We're explorers.
We're
in the
mistake
world.
makers.
Yes. I need a t-shirt with all of this written
I
on
know.
there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I am not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. It's okay. You're learning.
Exactly. And one of the things you talked about too that you were talking about at ISTE is social emotional learning. And I feel that's something where some schools brush it off as just a buzzword, as why do I need to, make this a priority? But from your perspective, why is it so important that in the world of ed tech, everything going on, that should also be something that schools should be focusing on?
Yeah, and it's funny you say buzzword, because it was something that when I've done presentations, I'm like, somebody said to me, what are you doing for SEL? And I was like, what are you doing for SEL? Because I wasn't familiar with like that term, but when they named a couple of things, I thought, oh yeah, I'm doing that too. And then I Googled it to find more information. And now for probably the past 4 years, I've been doing more presentations about SEL. The importance of it is because it ties in directly to, 21st century, future focus, all those skills. If you look at the World Economic Forum and the Job Skills Outlook, I mean, there's a direct correlation between SEL skills and the skills that are, in demand for the future for students. So a lot of times people will think, oh, it's another thing added on top. And it could be if you have extra curriculum and things like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with finding, a product that's out there, a platform that gives you everything you need for grades K through 12, but there's little activities that teachers are doing already that you might not be like, oh, this is SEL focused. But it's helping students to deal with like stress and understand where they're in learning and build relationships and teamwork, and all of that stuff is what we need now, like as adults, and the students need now in school, but we have to continue to develop that.
Absolutely. And I think especially after the last couple of years, there's that discussion about being future ready. And of course, it's for schools, it's preparing for the next pandemic or something that could happen. But for students, it's what new technology will be out there when they graduate, the things they're going to have. But the one thing that we can't predict is they're going to need those social emotional skills. They're going to need to know how to handle stress, anxiety, anything that gets thrown at them. So integrating that in the curriculum is huge, I think. And I agree. A lot of teachers don't realize what you're already doing is helping with that. Just focus on it and kind of be more intentional about what you're doing, which is awesome.
That's all you gotta do.
There you go. So kind of looking forward into the future, do you have any predictions about anything, like what you think is going to be the next big thing to look at?
I wish I did. It's just been interesting to see how fast things are evolving, especially with AI and all of the different tools that, it's not, is it going to replace teachers? I mean, some of the tasks that teachers do, but you still need that human component. And I think we are going to continue to see more and more AI coming into not just education, but it's in all areas of the world and work. So I think it'll be interesting as companies, that already have programs, platforms that they're offering to schools, how they're going to start to integrate artificial intelligence into that and what those benefits are going to be, but also how students are going to use that in whatever they do after they leave our schools. So we'll see. If I had a magic 8-ball, I could shake it. No, I'm kidding.
But not right now.
No.
So, but you can tell us as a teacher, if someone's just coming out of college or they're just getting ready to get in the classroom, what are some things they can do to help prepare for the world that they're entering into now? Because I'm sure the world they're entering into now is very different from the classrooms they were in 5 or 10 years ago when they were in middle school or high school.
Yeah, I think just be open to new experiences, understand what your interests are, know that it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do, because things change. I mean, in high school I took French, in college I took French, and I'm a Spanish teacher. Like, who would have seen that coming? But just being adaptable and flexible, and understanding that it's okay that you might make mistakes. Jobs are going to change. So what can you do? How can you prepare yourself that if you find out like, oh, I don't have my job anymore, so what's my underlying skill set? Or do you have something that you're like an entrepreneur? Like the gig economy we talked about, these jobs are being created, or people are creating their own jobs. They have an interest in something like photography, then they got social media, and now they have this like amazing business. I mean, whatever your interest is, like you can make that something that's like your life pursuit, you're like marketable, whatever it is. Just be open to opportunities.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the great ways they can prepare themselves is to check out all the resources that you have. So you mentioned your podcast. Where can people find it? What should they look for?
Pretty consistent. I mean, on social media, you can find me RDENE915. If you want my blog, just put the www and the .com after that. If you want to send me an email, just Google. I mean, I'm always like, if I can help somebody, that's what I want to do. So I'm not the expert, but if I can point you in the right direction or learn from you, I hope we'll connect.
Absolutely. And the one thing we learn from ISTE is collaborating together. That's the real thing. No one has all the answers, but together, collectively, we can figure out how to solve all the problems that are happening.
That's right.
Manpower it up.
Do not isolate.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us on the booth. We're so glad you took the time to talk to us. And if you are buzzing around ISTE or post-ISTE, check out all the resources that Rachelle has available and get connected with your fellow educators, guys. Let's go. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.